We're diving into a really strange and powerful story today, one that comes to us from 19th century Germany. It's this incredible tale about a lone missionary, secret police on his tail, and a pretty terrifying vision of the future.
But, this isn't just a history lesson. We're really asking something bigger here. What actually happens when a true story, a story of real struggle, turns into a legend? And maybe more importantly, why do we sometimes need those legends just to survive?
All right, so let's set the scene. We're in Frankfurt, Germany. It's the autumn of 1841. And the accounts from that time, well, they paint a pretty grim picture. You've got slick, wet cobblestones, the air is just thick with coal smoke, and there's this constant paranoia of being watched by secret police. This was absolutely not a welcoming place. And right into the scene walks our guy, Orson Hyde. Now, he is no conquering hero, not at all. The records describe him as completely exhausted, totally broke, with boots worn so thin his feet were on the stone. I mean, this was a man just defined by brutal, grinding desperation. So what's he doing here? Well, Hyde is on this monumental mission. He's trying to get to Jerusalem to dedicate the Holy Land. But back in the German states, a foreigner like him, an American, he's immediately seen as a potential threat, an agitator. He is a total stranger in a hostile land, and he knows it. He can feel eyes on him everywhere he goes.
So this brings us to a moment that honestly feels like it's pulled straight out of a thriller. After this grueling, exhausting journey, Hyde finally finds a little bit of refuge in a small inn. But, as you can probably guess, his relief doesn't last long.
Inside the inn, you can just feel the air getting thick with suspicion. And then, outside, a mob starts to form, all worked up by these rumors of some dangerous American wandering around. The tension is described as this sensory weight, like that heavy electric moment right before a thunderstorm breaks. And then, just as the mob lunges for the door, something completely inexplicable happens. Out of nowhere, a thick, disorienting fog, what gets called a mist of darkness, it just swallows the entire street. These men, they're completely lost. They can't find the door, they can't even find the building. So while it's total chaos outside, inside, Hyde feels this sudden, almost supernatural peace wash over him. This all builds to what is really the cinematic peak of the story, which happens a few days later. Hyde is now on a steamer, traveling down the famous Rhine River, and it's right here that the line between what's history and what's legend just completely blurs. The description of the scene is just beautiful. Picture it. The river is like a serpent of liquid silver glowing under the moon, and the only sound is the rhythmic thrum-thrum of the paddle wheel, echoing off these dark canyon walls. It's a really lonely, incredibly atmospheric setting. It's here that his senses start to shift. The air around him seems to vibrate. The spray coming off the river doesn't feel like cold water anymore. It feels like light hitting his skin. He's standing there at the railing, and the story goes that his face is lit up by this glow that isn't coming from the moon. It's like the veil between worlds is just tearing open. And in this moment, he gets what becomes known as the German prophecy. And for 1841, it is terrifyingly modern. He sees the great monarchies of Europe, the old crowns, being thrown into a furnace. He actually hears the sound of 20th century cannons decades before they even existed. And he sees a scattered people finally returning home to the East. The whole vision just hits him like a physical blow. Okay, so this brings us to the really crucial question, right? Why did this story survive? Why would a community of pioneers thousands of miles away in America cherish this strange tale from Germany? Well, the answer really shows you the true power of folklore. This story, it became a kind of spiritual life raft. See, for his community back home, people who were often poor, persecuted, driven from their homes, this legend was proof that they were part of some bigger, divine story. It transformed their suffering into a test of faith. The thinking was, if God could shield one man with a fog in Germany, then surely he could guide their wagons across the plains. And this slide, it just illustrates that transformation perfectly. Folklore took the real man, who was lonely, probably sick, and totally vulnerable, and it turned him into a legend. He became a spiritual titan, the hero of a divine thriller. The very real grit of his journey became the glory of their shared story.
And all of this, it leads to the journey's end, where that prophecy from the fog of Germany finally finds its purpose under the bright sun of the Middle East.
When Orson Hyde finally reached Jerusalem on October 24, 1841, he was skeletal, just worn down to nothing. But as he knelt on the Mount of Olives to offer his prayer,
The journey came full circle. That vision on the Rhine had led to this very real, tangible act in the Holy Land.
You see, Orson Hyde came home with a story that was just. It was too big for his journals. It needed to become folklore to survive. And it leaves us with this really powerful idea. Sometimes when the world is dark and the path ahead is lost in fog, the stories we tell are the only landmarks we have. They remind us that there may be fires burning on the river that only some of us can see.